All right, welcome to Idea Share. It is October. This is our monthly conversation hosted by Key Ministry. I am Beth Golick from Key Ministry, and I'm joined by my colleague, she's down here for me, Catherine Boyle, who is our Director of Mental Health Ministry. So it's October. We had September. We didn't meet because of Labor Day here in the US. So I feel like we've got a lot to catch up on. And you probably have heard that Key Ministry has a big announcement regarding our conference, Disability in the Church. But the call for speakers went out today. So if you are not familiar with what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go to keyministry.org, and it's right there on the main page. You can click to get information about what we've released so far about the conference that will be happening in Orlando, Florida, May 1st through 3rd, 2024. The call for speakers, the application is linked to there. It will be available through almost midnight, 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Friday, November 3rd, I believe is the date. So, all right, so that's my big announcement. But who would like to kick us off? Who would like to get started and tell us what's going on, what you've been up to? Deacons.
It's been too long since we've been able to give an update, but I have a really big answer to prayer to share with you all. So every year, Thomas Road Baptist Church does this huge, they used to call it the Pastors Conference, I think, but now they're calling it the church. It's called Refuel, but it's the church. Now they're calling it Church Leadership Conference. So that's pretty cool. So they're inviting, everybody that's church leadership. So that can be lay people as well as staff, as well as, the senior leadership. Well, this time, for the very first time, we are going to have a disability special needs track. So that is absolutely thrilling. And here's the humbling part. Tom and I have been asked to work with the Director of Special Needs to do our track. So that is on Monday, I think it's the 16th of October. So it's coming up pretty soon. And it's from 1:30 to 4:30. So we've got some hours here to, give some good input. So y'all be praying about who needs to come to this, because, people come from all over the country, and who needs to be in that track, and which churches need to be represented in there. And then, pray that we do something that really makes a difference for them. So anyway, that's our news, and we're so super excited about it.
That is really amazing. Do you, if you need help from this group brainstorming things, I feel like we've covered so many different topics on our idea shares and roundtables, but that's fantastic. That's amazing. And I love that you're going to be able to reach all kinds of leaders. So this is like your denominational
Yeah, it's a denominational. It's the Baptist Liberty Baptist
Church Network.
The church. There's a church network
Liberty Church Network
throughout the world. Liberty Church Network. That's what it is. And I feel like Hebrews 11, where we have the cloud of witnesses, you guys that have spoken into our hearts and our minds. And that we can move forward with confidence. And so, yeah, we pray that the right people will be there, and that we will speak what God wants us to speak.
We didn't know anything before Key Ministry, just saying.
Well, I think you knew a lot, but maybe this pulled it all together.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Who else would like to go? Barb, I was kind of hoping you would.
Okay, so our big announcement is we are starting the grant project with our denomination, which is the Church of the Nazarene. We are officially starting this week. As of today, Wonderful Works now has 2 paid staff members. And we've got our funding in place. We have 3 major meetings this week to get everything kicked off. And what's on my heart really is just for all you guys is praying for each other, because I feel like God is doing amazing big work in the disability ministry mission with each of our organizations and churches. And I can't speak for anyone else, but like, I'm in this place where I feel like I know God has called me here, but it's also way over my head, like kind of like that ocean song. And if God doesn't step in, that we will not be able to do it. And the only thing that gets me through that is prayer, like my prayers to God, but also inviting other people in to pray. And I feel like that represents each and every one of you, because each and every one of you is also doing incredibly important work for this mission and for the kingdom. So I just want to say thank you for this, for each one of you, and let's keep praying for each other.
Barb, that is so well said. I mean, I feel like the work here, like only God, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is not individuals or individual ministries. And so that is such a good reminder to just be lifting up each one of us and our ministries. Yeah, because he can do amazing things.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
Thank you. Since there might be some people who are newer, do you want to just tell us a little bit about Wonderful Works and how they can find you and all that?
Yeah. So I lead Wonderful Works Ministry, and we are an online disability ministry resource center. Basically, we create 5 to 7 minute animated training videos for disability ministry that churches can show their volunteer teams. Try to make them very volunteer friendly so that it's easy on a Sunday morning for your volunteers to get one skill in disability ministry each week. We also do expert in the field interviews so that leaders can go deeper. Our one this month features Beth Golick, and we are talking about universal design. So I definitely would encourage everyone to check that out. But we've been doing that for about 3 years. And this year we were invited in on a major grant project with the Church of the Nazarene, which is the denomination I'm part of, where we are going to be partnering with them to build an adapted discipleship resource library for our denomination that will include some adapted curriculum, our training videos, and downloadable resources. And they are going to be hiring a disability ministry coordinator to build up leadership structures within the denomination. So that is also a prayer request, because we're in the process of trying to hire someone for that. But it is a major, major, major project. So be praying for us. And if you want to check out our stuff, you can look at wonderfulworks.net. And anyone is free to join our Facebook group, Wonderful Works Ministry on Facebook. And that's where we house all of our disability ministry training videos.
That's awesome. So that's a huge report.
Yeah.
So thank you. So who else would like to go? And they don't have to all be like this huge. But what else do you have going on, or maybe like a situation you're kind of wondering about, or that type of thing? At your individual church, with your ministry.
Al, are you
I
prepared?
know,
to tell us-
I'm staring at Al. I'm waiting for him to unmute and tell us where he's been and what he's been up to.
I got to visit Allison Kelisick at Willowdale Chapel a couple weekends ago. Heard great things from everyone, including her pastor, stuff like that. She's in a great situation, a ton of support from the leadership, and just doing an awesome job. So Allison, hats off. Thanks for letting me check out what you're doing. I am typing up a report for you. Hopefully that'll help you with your leaders to get some more stuff you want. So I'm doing some consulting now. I have a friend advisor said I should do consulting as part of what I do. So that'll be help fund what I do, as well as help move things forward. Lord willing, in 2 days, I will catch an airplane from Newark, New Jersey to Paris, France. This weekend is the first, we're calling it Atypic, kind of a play on words. It's a special needs family retreat in Brittany in Western France. This came out of the French church, basically, and a French conference center requesting this to happen. So I'm working with, we have a meeting like 2:30 Eastern time. I'm zooming in on it. Everyone else is in France, but the final meeting before we get going on it. But yeah, there's 6 children and their caregivers at this point. A lot of autism, I understand, in that world. In France, there's way less resources than in the US. I was on a Johnny and Friends retreat this year, my fourth one, and just, they're everywhere in the US. In France, this is like one of the rare ones. Hopefully there's another one coming up in April in the Alps, but they just don't happen in France. So this is pioneering kind of stuff that hopefully will move the ball forward. So it's exciting to be part of this and humbling. Our theme is being brave. We're talking about David and Goliath, and he talks about the living God, and God saw his heart, and he was brave against the giant because he knew the living God. And he says, don't look at outward appearance. Our kids with disabilities certainly get neglected. And hopefully in France, this will be a way of helping people to see them in a small way. And so I'm excited and moved to get to do this week. So thanks. Pray for France. Pray for disability. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Al, for
It's
that.
been good to be part of this group too, kind of in moving this whole thing this past year, even in France. So it's been good to have your encouragement and sharing with you as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. Thank you for the work you're doing and your heart behind this. And it is really exciting to see how you're advancing the movement even more by going like to places where maybe there isn't this connection in this movement. And so thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. And we will definitely be praying for you for these as you're off to this next adventure. Speaking of adventures, and I won't, Linda, do you want to fill us in on what you've been up to? You don't have to, but if you want to.
Yeah,
I feel like we're in the international realm right now.
my ministry is basically going independent from SALT so that I can broaden what I can do. That's not part of their kind of mission. So I also, my director who was with me the last key ministry, he's my actual, for my real job, my supports my living. We have a design team in Ukraine, so we have a trip that work is paying for the airfare. So I'll be in Ukraine, Western Ukraine, to do work, and then we also have ministry work to do, to speak to a church called Hope to the People, which is also the same building where the Wings of Faith preschool resides. This pastor is very different than most Ukrainian pastors because Ukrainians are in denial about disabilities. It's not that they avoid them. There's no disabilities in our country, even though in the Paralympics they did very well. So it's a disconnect. So I'll be in Ukraine, then I'll be in Warsaw, then I'll be in Gdansk, and then I'm going to Germany. And the crazy thing is I've reconnected with a bunch of people I knew in Odessa. So there's a church in Dresden that has a large Ukrainian population, and I'll be connecting with them and connecting with these other people I used to serve with in the Odessa region. So that's kind of nice to try to encourage them to go serve these kids that are displaced, disabled orphans from Ukraine, just walk with them, stuff like that. So I leave the 14th of October and come back the November 13th. So I'm almost gone for about a month, but it's a lot of relationship building, a lot of just serving these other people that my friend has connected me with. So that's exciting. But I've also been invited to go to Amsterdam at a certain point and speak to women rescued off the red light district. And I created this mental health journal years ago, and I showed it to this woman that runs this ministry. She's like, we should give this to the girls because it's all biblically based. I mean, of course, it has about taking a bath, but everything's focused on verses about your identity in God. And I was thinking about we should just make a 30-day journal because giving them a whole year journal would just freak them out, maybe. So that's exciting. So there's a lot of different things going on, and I have had to go to a different church for different reasons. And they have a access ministry, but it's not so developed. But what I love about this church is I see a lot of disabilities within the mix of the regular congregation, because the way their worship service is very inviting to most people with disabilities. And of course, it is noisy, so comes where, but it's not this lighting effect and stuff like this. So I see people with Down syndrome kids, autistic kids, and stuff like this, and I'm like, this is great, because we do need access ministry, but we do need them into the body, because we're all one body. And when I think it's good intentions, some churches, but it's like the same thing. You don't see the disabled in the church. They're not on the stage. They're not helping out with ushers, you know. And I think if the kids can do it, like at my old church, a woman, her mom passed away, and her Down syndrome brother came to live with her, and he was serving as an usher. He went on mission trips with us to Ecken Hills and served others. And I'm like, it was great. She was really worried because her mom sheltered him, but he was great. He loved being an usher. He loved hugging people. And I'm thinking, it has to be more that the disabled belong in the community, not just included. And I know a lot of people get touchy about this, but inclusion is different than belonging. You know, you really feel like you belong to a community or a family. Inclusion is like when you're picking a kickball or dodgeball team and you need those weird kids just to have extra bodies on the court. They're not really part of the team. They're included because they need more bodies. So that's how I see that. And I know I'm not trying to be nasty, but as somebody suffers with this, I don't really suffer, but inflicted, I want to belong to a community. I don't want to fully be catered to. I don't need to be fixed. And more people are like, how do you do all this serving? I'm like, if you look at it, God picked not the outcast, or, you know, look at David, look at all the people he picked, Jonah even. I mean, he even argued with him after he did his work. But you know, it's like trying to encourage more people to go serve with disabilities, that you can do this. And
Wow.
it opens that door.
This is a lot to unpack, but you said so many amazing things, Linda. So, first of all, if you're not familiar with Linda's work, please check out Abnormal Missionary. Is it .com? .org?
.org.
.org. Okay, so I want to tell you that. Also, in addition to her many gifts, she's an amazing photographer. And so I do really encourage you to kind of follow what she's up to. But what you said about inclusion or being included versus belonging is huge. And I think you're right. I think serving is such an integral part of belonging. And so I would love, like, any thoughts on that, or any ideas for how our churches can be better at just not making this like a program, but just how are people finding their place of belonging and a place to serve, and how can that better just be part of what our churches are? So thank you, Linda.
Welcome.
Good stuff. Julie.
So I just wanted to share that what you were just talking about, Beth, with our daughter, Amy, who looks like she's about 10 or 12 and is 28. And so most people think that she's a child. And so we have to get that elephant out of the room pretty quickly so that people can start talking to her like she's an adult, because she gets a little frustrated with that. So, and it's not their fault. She looks like a kid, so it's not their fault. But this semester, our leadership team for women's ministry grabbed Amy and asked her if she would hold up a sign for when the women are coming into Bible study. Now, we have hundreds of women that come to this Bible study on Tuesday mornings. And so the sign says, "You are loved." I just want to cry. And here's Amy holding the sign. And she doesn't just hold the sign, because Amy doesn't just do anything, just do it. So she's dancing behind that sign. You see his little legs moving around, and she's just kind of moving, and she's got this great big bright smile. She was made to do this. And it just is so incredibly precious. So that's what you're talking about. Something simple. I mean, just like you would do anybody else, like you would ask anybody else, could you just hold this sign up, And now she's like every week, she's looking for that sign as soon as she gets to Bible study.
I love it. Yes, and I can totally picture. Yeah, Amy doesn't, she may be small, does not do anything small. Yeah. Anybody else?
Well, you know, they say tiny but mighty. Tiny.
That's right.
I mean, I do think churches need to start rethinking worship service. There's a lot of churches that, and I'm not trying to bash them or anything, that I look on social media and I see people just sharing things. I'm like, is this a worship service or rock concert? Like, how is this welcoming into all? And I know we can't cater to all, but we need to cater broader. And you know, when I changed churches, I saw, and yeah, you can have services like that for like young adults and stuff like that. But when you're thinking like elder people don't like that kind of service. So even though it is good for the disabled, but it's good for a broader community, like disabled or people with hearing problems or whatever. But it's rethinking how we worship and how we allow everybody to come and worship as one body, you know.
Yeah, that rethinking, that's a good word. I like kind of looking at everything through like fresh eyes, like a fresh perspective. And you know, as we get to learn about different, you know, everything from sensory processing differences to, you know, disabilities associated with aging, like, you know, we as churches can do better, I think, at making some little modifications here and there that just benefit everybody across the board. I'm looking at you, Barb, because that's what we talked
I
about.
mean, like I have some issues with my ankle, and I've started noticing where they put handicap spots. Like I was at this new Christian church bought an older school, renovated it. It's a 3-story building without an elevator.
What?
Yes,
Is that
I
even
was like,
allowed?
and I was like, how did this, like, and they could put it in there because I work for an architect. I have an architect background. I'm like, there's this weird lobby space behind the stairwell. They could put an elevator right there. And then I
Wow.
was looking at where their wheelchairs access was for parking. And I'm like, well, that's like at least 100 feet from the front door. And when you take your grandma out in the wheelchair or whoever, you got to push them up a pretty good grade. And I'm like, this is from a church. How is this welcoming? I mean, if a kid breaks his leg, they can't do art because it's on the 3rd floor. They can't go to the library. It's on the 3rd floor. How did this happen? But they're putting all this technology in, and I'm like, well, that's great and everything, but you should have made sure this building was accessible to all, and I have no clue how that passed. It's just like, wow.
So
But
I
yeah.
know there's some, like I know Ability Ministry has a really good like accessible checklist that kind of takes some of these, like you can actually go through and see how well your building does. Yeah, I think it's Ability Ministry. I think it's .com. Thank you, Catherine. And then I'm pretty sure Johnny and Friends has an accessibility checklist as well. But it's, yeah, it's.
I was just, I mean, I told Timothy, I'm like, I might do an art project on this because I went to shoot a football game. They had a beautiful field and they had okay handicap area, but then they had this special area for the seniors and it was in a ditch. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I was just like, oh my gosh. But
Someone
it's like,
didn't quite think it through, yeah.
I'm just like, you got this nice turf field, fix this parking area. I'm sure there's some grandmas here that don't want to roll in this ditch. I was like, because he's like, send me a photo. And I'm like, I don't know. I sent it to him. He's like, yeah, that's a ditch that they're parking. I was like, wow, what happens when it rains? You know?
Yeah.
But it's just, I've become sensitive to this.
Yeah.
Even though,
Well, yeah, I mean, once you know, and then you start seeing it everywhere. Barb.
but,
Well, a couple things. The first thing I think we need to do to change the conversation about making worship and church more accessible to everyone is we have to start a conversation of this is a conversation with two sides. Because whenever we just did this video on accessible worship, because anyone who's known me for 5 minutes knows I have sensory processing disorder. And churches that are super loud is hard for me, that is an emotional trigger for me. But as we were doing this, I had to stop and check myself to say, I know how it feels for me, but what does this feel like for the people who are putting their life and passion and everything they have into doing the worship? And I think something that we can inadvertently do as disability advocates is to not think about it from the other person's perspective and meet in the middle. So some of the stuff like we'll hear, like, why do churches do certain things is because of finances. Like, for instance, recently we have been looking at getting ASL interpreters for this project that we're doing. And we say, like, well, we want everything to have ASL interpreters for people with hearing issues. But sometimes hiring those people is cost prohibitive. So when we're telling churches you need to do this, we also need to tell them how they can do it in a way they can actually do it. So here's where you can go for funding, or here's what you can do to do volunteer. So I think that we have to really work on uniting both sides to come up with realistic solutions to each problem, and know that sometimes that starts small and builds to where we want to go.
Yeah, I love, that's such a good point, Barb.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
And then
that.
just with that real quick, just talking about the accessible worship, because we did just do this video about it, which was talking about the prayer, the one I had to pray the most over because I maybe wasn't my best self talking to a worship director a couple months ago about this issue, and perhaps that conversation didn't go as well as it could have. But anyway, with that, I did do a lot of prayer in that, and really thinking about, like, how can we make this work? Because for a lot of churches, that concert is part of their DNA, and it is important to them, and it is drawing people in, like young people or like people like my husband, like that. So I don't think that it is a black and white, like, don't have it at all. What can we do for both? And so my question is, how do you guys feel about most of the churches that do the really loud, lots of lights, concert level worship services are fairly big churches that have more than one service? So could it be the solution that one service is like the concert, and then one service is the exact same, except for the lights are stationary and the volume is down? So it's not like a sensory friendly or like a disability service, but it's just like the chill-tastic version of the other one. Like, can we do things like that? Because to me, that would be an easy solution.
So it looks like Catherine has something to say, but I have to jump in first and say, can we just say never strobes though? Can we just say no strobe
Yes.
lights?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Okay, all right, Catherine.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, this is not an ideal solution, but it's something that my church does that I think is wise. So, you know, we have like the whole praise band thing, and we did have like the nasty strobe lights, and somebody or several somebodies like talked about that, and we don't have those going anymore. So, so that's really good. But we also have a once a month, I forget what they call it, like traditional service or something. It's in the morning. It's geared towards the older adults. It's all hymn based, acoustic, you know, piano. We don't have an organ. But, you know, to try to meet just the heart needs of that population. I mean, because that's what that is. It's like, you know, I mean, like when we're 80 years old, you know, we're going to be longing for oceans, you know, that ocean song, and like all these Hillsong songs. And there's going to be something else that's like, you know, that our grandkids are going to be thinking is like the only thing you can have as church music. So anyway, so that's a solution that's there. And I think, you know, when you do something that's obviously making an effort, it does show to people that they belong, you know, whatever that effort is. So, and I wanted to ask a question, because we have talked a little bit about belonging and aging. You know, I mean, we're Church for Every Child, you know, our focus is on KidMin, but people grow up. And so I'd be curious to hear, because aging has come up a couple of times, you know, how are you doing anything specific to foster belonging in, you know, say populations age, you know, 65, 75, you know, and up, so that, you know, what are you doing to plug them in? You know, individuals who, you know, maybe they don't have a disability, but, you know, mental health is, you know, my area of responsibility. So what are you doing to, to reach out to those individuals who are isolated and, maybe don't want to physically be connected. So for whatever reason, I'm just curious to hear, since we have a forum to share that kind of thing today.
So at our church, we have a seniors ministry, and it is very well populated from the community. And they do all kinds of things. So they bring in the older bands, like you were talking about. They bring in the older bands, and every Thursday morning they have, I think they even go into lunch. So they come like
free food.
later in the morning because they all want to sleep in a little bit, and then they come in and free food
For lunch.
and they have lunch. But they do the concert thing. They also do trips, and they provide buses so that the parents or the seniors do not have to get there by themselves. They get to hop on a bus and go. Just recently they came back from seeing the Ark.
The Ark.
And
Kentucky.
yeah, in Kentucky. So that was a really really exciting trip for them. So it's and they have actually, of course you can do this with a larger church, they have a staff person that is over seniors. So they really do look out, and it's, there's lots of different ages at our church because we are right next to Liberty University. And so when you were talking about all of the music things that come with it for young people,
Yeah,
that's what we got.
because
we're right next to Liberty University. And so I love, thinking about, well, what else do we have? So they've got that for the seniors, but then what about other people that are coming on a Sunday morning? That's something we're thinking about. So thank you for that.
Are you all, is that used as like an outreach kind of initiative? It kind of sounds like it is, because you said that it's open to the public.
The senior ministry, you mean? Yeah, almost everything that we do is open to the public. So yes.
If anybody has
Yeah,
any,
Allison.
Allison, go ahead.
Hey guys, so two things. One is that we have a senior group that we provide a brunch for every Sunday, and it was quite funny because it came up the other day that the young people are getting quite envious because they're getting all the fun food. So we've been able to try and do a bit of an intergenerational mix now of a lobby space area where predominantly the food is there for the older groups, but there's some games out for the younger people, and we're trying to sort of mix the two. And it's actually something that our deacon team, so it's not a church staff member that's taking it on, but it's a deacon team. But it was just interesting where you end up with the younger people were like, why do they get the donuts each week? But I have to share really quickly, not that our church is doing it, but my mum's church in the UK, instead of a VBS for the young kids, they do it for the senior citizens. So they have this amazing, you have to be 70 plus, and it's definitely the community that benefit from this, but it is like a 3-day adventure. And instead of because a lot of them can't travel anymore, they have a theme. So I think last year was Spain, this year was Yorkshire. So they have everything you can possibly imagine created around the theme. They have bus tours, they do trips, they do full dining experience with proper china and endless cups of tea. And my mum, who's in her later 70s, still serves there every day from 8 o'clock in the morning till like 6 o'clock at night. But she was saying she does like the spa, she'll like talk to them all. She said it is funny because those of you that host Night to Shine appreciate you have to figure out where all the clothes, all the coats are going for the guests. Well, for this, they have to figure out where all the frames, the walking frames and all the sticks and everything, where they're putting those. And I just love the fact that they decided there's enough activities going on in the community for the younger people, but this was really focused towards the older generation, and they look forward to it. The church all serves them, and it brings a lot of them back to the church, that some of them can't get there on a weekly basis. A lot of dementia happening, and I just loved it. I just thought that it was something that I haven't heard of, but hats off to a UK church doing it.
I love it. And I love the way you say Yorkshire. Say it one more time.
Yorkshire.
Okay. No, what a cool idea. And I love how you called it VBS for the older crowd. I love it. Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
With ministry, I can't remember what it used to be called. They're thinking about seniors as well. And there's a lady, I can't what her name is. Y'all know her.
Victoria
That-
White.
Yeah, yeah, Tori. Yeah, she's doing a lot of thinking about that. And I think they have some materials as
Yeah.
well for seniors.
Yeah. Yeah. With Ministries used to be Friendship. Yeah. Good call, Al. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So Barb has put a link to Sensory Overload and Worship, which is a video for church leaders. So we'll make sure to post that link in when we post this on Vimeo. And I think you all know this, but you can always access the recordings of the idea shares and the monthly disability ministry video roundtables on the keyministry.org website. So just look for it's videos and roundtables or something is the link. Anybody else?
I just want to say, I know worship has always been like a contentious thing in the church. So I'm not trying to bash anything, and I think it's not a black or white issue. It's just trying to rethink how can we approach this in a manner that's more welcoming to a broader, because the older people, and that is great in England that the grannies and grandpas are going to a VBS. That's cool. So, I mean, how do we make it that it's more approachable for them, that, they're not, I got to the point in my old church that I was getting headaches and I couldn't be in the worship service. And I just got to the point where I have to look at what I'm doing. And, the church that I'm going to now, they had a thing on Thursday night about broadening what they're doing with access and thinking about we have the stuff for school age kids and primarily elementary, but broadening it out to the older children and where do they go after they're finished school and stuff like that. How do we, assist with this, because their access ministries were in infancy, and then, it's kind of great being a part of how they're growing this and thinking about how do we do this, and it's not a black and white issue on either end. So, but there are certain small things you can do to make it better. So.
And I love just the idea of rethinking things. I just think it's really important that just because we've always done something this way, that doesn't mean that's the way it should be forever. So, if you've had some kind of access ministry or disability ministry or special needs ministry, whatever it's called, for young kids, well, maybe now's the time to rethink what happens when those kids get older. Or, we've always done worship this way. And, maybe it's time to rethink that and bring the right people to the table. To Barb's point, this isn't disability ministry leaders or disability advocates saying this is how it should be, but let's have a conversation about how we can make whatever it is, our buildings, our worship, our whatever, welcoming to all different kinds of people. Because sometimes there are some real easy little answers, not all the time, but so I just love the idea of rethinking. And I love this group because I feel like you all are constantly looking at all the different constituents, the different angles on things, and just bringing these ideas to the table and bringing them to your churches. And so I applaud you all for that. Yeah, Allison.
In that same sort of vein of thinking, a lot of my kids, and I think I brought it up on this Zoom before, but a lot of my kids are reaching the classic puberty ages, and I am in search of, for ministry leaders, but also for families, any resources that any of you have about either teaching your kids what's going on for them, especially if they're nonverbal on the autism spectrum, helping parents decipher what behaviors may be changing, and just generally resources. And I know on the Johnny and Friends Zoom, I had a chat with some leaders there, and it was almost like there's not really much out there that's sort of biblically based resources, but we've there are some sort of educational resources out there. But I was just putting it out there because my kids are all growing up, and yes, it's the classic, I could do what I could do with them with kids, and now I'm like in this sort of, and it just seems to be coming at all different angles and different times and places, and I'm like, I need to ask this group.
Yeah. So first of all, before I say anything, do any of you have any resources in mind that could address the issue of, so we're talking about kind of the whole puberty thing and what that means for families, what that might look like in your church, how to help students who may have like a learning difference, like understand what's going on with their own body, and especially if we can do this in a biblically based way. Does anybody have any? So, well, do you think this would be a good monthly disability ministry video roundtable topic? So like for this month, should we do it? Okay. All right, so that's what it's going to be, the third Wednesday of October. I will get that posted hopefully later today or tomorrow. I know that Ability Ministry does have some resources that speak to, maybe, do they have like dating and relationships? I may be wrong. Okay, so I'm not going to rewind. I think that they might, or they should. And am I getting a head nod from? Okay, cool. So that's definitely a thing. But let's have this as our discussion, so we can all like either do our research or come with questions, because this is a topic. Yeah, Catherine.
You can finish your thought if you want.
No, I was just gonna say this is a topic that everybody's gonna deal with at some point. So,
Right. So we did a webinar a couple of years ago with a couple of ladies from a church in Ohio near you, Beth,
mhm.
on good touch, bad touch, sex
Yeah.
abuse prevention. So that's a little different spin on this, but I'm not able to get the link up really quickly, but I, want to just say that that's out there on the Key
Yes.
Ministry webinars, mental health webinars page.
So
So
we
I'll
will,
put that
by the
link.
October Disability Ministry Video Roundtable in a couple of weeks, we will have that link ready to share with you all. Yes, that was kind of on helping teens and adults with maybe intellectual
Yes.
disabilities
Yes.
to like understand good touch, bad touch, boundaries, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's on that page of our website that I just shared the link.
So Catherine in the chat shared keyministry.org/mental health webinars. And so it was a webinar. It was a good one. Yes, Andrea.
I think the other piece of that is not understanding what's happening with your own body, but how to protect yourself from making choices that could be illegal or different things, because some of our population is very friendly and can find themselves in difficult circumstances that they didn't intend to be. So I think that's an important piece of maybe that discussion too.
Absolutely. All right. So I want everybody to pull out their calendars and put 1, 2, 3. Wednesday, October 18th at noon Eastern time. Meet me back here. And we will have that discussion. And invite your friends. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts, questions, Al?
I was at a Catholic parish yesterday, St. Luke's in Long Valley, New Jersey. Their priest, Father Owen, today he's switching parishes, and he was quite instrumental in them developing a very good disability ministry. So, I don't know if any of us hang out with Catholics in the disability world, but there's some good work being done in some parishes, things like that. and it's very encouraging in New Jersey with Capernaum and some other groups, that are working within Catholic parishes as well as non-Catholic as well. So yeah, I was just very encouraged. All the disability families were giving hugs and all that. He just really opened up the parish and made it a lot more free to do all they're doing with disability work there. So
That's great. It's exciting to hear when, the movement is expanding. I love it. For folks who maybe aren't familiar with Capernaum, do you want to give us a little synopsis of what that is?
Capernaum is part of Young Life Ministries. It is their special needs branch. Normally it's from 14 to 22, although the upper margins are sometimes stretched.
I think it gets a little gray because it's hard then for people to leave.
Right. Yeah, there's a church here that does Night to Shine. I just read about a couple days ago that is working with a Capernaum chapter for a 22 and up group. So officially Capernaum does not do that. So I don't know how they're gonna figure that out.
I think they, I believe they're working on a partnership with 99 Balloons. Does this sound right to anybody? And they're kind of developing a new model for, providing that community for young adults who have aged out of Capernaum.
That would be great if that's true. I mean, maybe it's a secret. 99 Balloons does do very well with 22 and up.
Yeah.
So if there's a way they can do that, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I always like to get Al's regional updates because he's like the man in the know in the New York, New Jersey area, for sure. Anybody else? Yes, Andrea.
Well, just talking about one of the things, just if it's an idea share, we did this past month was a disability resource fair at our church. So we invited community organizations, faith-based organizations, a couple of school organizations. And then this was our second annual one. And while it was great getting resources out to families, when they came back this year, we found that some of them had partnered together to do different things for the community, which was really great. Great way to get people into the church. And then this year we combined with a chalk event that happens. So they do large chalk drawings out on the pavement, and then people with disabilities can be part of that chalk drawing. And it's just a really neat event. This was their 7th annual event, and they were willing to move it to our church. And so we saw hundreds of people come, and it was just a neat way to kind of open up the church and give access to our community that we know is isolated in many ways, to connect with resources, have a fun day. We had bounce houses and our art bus came and all sorts of things. And it was just really a really neat day.
Very cool. Thank you. And those of you who know me know I love a collaboration. I love a good collaboration where you're partnering with the community and using our church buildings to welcome the community in. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I would love to see pictures, the chalk art thing. It sounds really cool. All right. Anybody else? Any last thoughts? All right. Well, I have very much appreciated the discussion today, everyone. So thank you for encouraging each other, for praying for each other. Just like we've talked about, it's super important. Definitely go to keyministry.org and check out Disability in the Church 2024. There's an opportunity for you to sign up. We're going to be providing regular updates to the people that sign up to say they want regular updates. So you can do that. Make sure you're getting our monthly emails for the Key Ministry Disability Ministry Video Roundtable, since we know what we're going to be talking about later this month. And I just appreciate you guys. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.